Alright, so now we're going to look at doing some graphing and correlations with pandas. So we're looking at pandagraphs.py, and we're going to read the Titanic data file again, one you've worked in with the previous tutorial. What we're going to do is we're going to grab 4 columns and 4 columns only. We're going to show the head of that. We're going to make that as a new data frame, Titanic small. We'll do the head and describe that just because that's what you always do. Then we're going to see what plot, plot bar, and plot bar H do. And we'll run that. And as you can see, we have the head, which is the first 5 records, and then we describe, so we get the mean, standard deviation, minimum, the quartiles, and the max. Now, where's our graphs? Well, guess what? We are graphing all of those data points, and it's going to be a really ugly graph. But it's working on it right now, and it will pop up presently. And if we wait long enough, it will show up. All 3 graphs will show up, and you will see, there's the first one. As you can see, not a particularly pleasant looking graph because of the ranges are way out of line between the 3 different variables. And that is just, if you just do plot, you get that, which is officially a line graph, or a line plot, I guess you should do. We're working on the bar chart, and we'll get a bar chart or a bar graph, and then we'll get the horizontal bar chart and a bar graph. It's easy for me to say. And there's the next one. There's you got your plot. You can see we have all those data points, which is why it's such a big mess down there. Not particularly easy to read. And then we'll do the horizontal one, and we'll wait for that to pop up, and then we'll be done with this one, and we will move on to pandagraph 2 eventually. No, I could edit this out, but I'm not going to edit this out. It's too much work. I have to sit here. You guys have to sit here. There we go. And then it's horizontal. So you can do line graph, bar graph, vertical, and a bar graph horizontal. Now, it's not very useful when you're doing all those data pieces, so let's shrink it down. So we're going to go back to the Fremont weather, which you should have used from the other tutorial. We're going to read that in. We're going to print it out. We're going to do a plot. We'll do the bar chart. We'll do the horizontal bar chart. And then we will do something a bit more interesting. We're going to do histograms. And we'll talk about histograms in a minute. So we do our, there we go. We do our, we print the weather. Then we do our first graph, which is just our line graph of all of the data pieces. We have average high, average low, the record high, the record low, and the average precipitation. Then we do the bar chart, which is going same data, but now we're going a bar chart. And then we do a horizontal bar chart, much quicker than the Titanic data. Now, let's look at the histogram. Our histogram looks like that, and that is just the count of the values at those breakpoints. Now, you see we don't have a bin on line 10. If we do a bin 50, that means it breaks it into 50 columns that it's going to sum those up. And if we do that, we get something that looks more like that. So there are 50 points that go across there. Basically, it's like you can set the size of the x-axis, but then the counts stack up depending on how many bins you have, which is why they call them bins and not just setting the axis label. If we look at pandagraph 3, we are still using the same Fremont weather. I'm making the display wide so we can see all the results. And if we run that, you can see we get the data. That's the data we have. We do a correlation matrix right here. And the correlation matrix is, if you ever read a correlation, it's the average high versus the average high. It's perfect correlation. And average high to average low is 0.9. Correlation values range from -1 to +1. One correlation means when one value moves up, another value moves up. It's always between two values. -1 correlation means when one moves up, the other one moves down the same amount. And so the range, and a 0 correlation is there's no connection between them. And so correlation in some ways says the data shows that the variables are some way connected. And so correlation is often done when you're looking at data sets to figure out, is there some connection between these variables. Now, the other way to look at it would be to do a scatter plot. And if you do a scatter plot, you get something that looks like that. And if you do your correlation line, it's going to look right down there, which is pretty much perfect then. And as you can see, the correlation, and that's between average precipitation and average highs. And if you look, the average high and average precipitation is a -0.95, which is almost perfect, which would be either a 1 or a -1. And then you can see that from the scatter plot. And in the scatter plot, we just pick the x-axis and the y, the two variables we want to do, and it does the scatter plot. And that's how you do graphing and the correlations in pandas.